I really wish I could hug you right now.
I know. Well, the funny thing is we still haven't met in person.
We've literally never hugged in our lives, and that is
No.
criminal.
I know. Every time I'm like, "Oh, yeah," like, I was just telling my boyfriend, which we'll get to in a moment, like, "Oh, I'm recording this podcast with this girl that I haven't met, but that's okay. We're good friends."
But, like,
So,
we're really good friends, and we have been for years now.
yeah, it is criminal, but how are you? How is everything?
I'm good. How are
I'm
you?
great. I mean, when was the last time I was on this show?
Okay, so I re-listened to our episode this morning, so I know
Oh my
all.
gosh.
But just catching everyone else up to speed, you
Yeah.
guys, I this is such a special episode. I have all, like, the warm, cozy, hot chocolate butterfly, warm blanket feels right
Oh,
now. Being
wow.
here with Erica Shea, that is how you make me feel. Welcome back to Seeing Other People for the 5th time.
The 5th time?
Last
No.
time we said it was 4. I would have thought this was 4, but last episode, which was recorded last summer 2023, we had said
Okay.
that it was the 4th time.
Wow. Okay. Well, then the 5th time, baby. 5th time's a charm, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're in a very exclusive club. I think it's you, Carly, and Jake are the only people who have made it this far.
Not even the boys?
No, they're at 4. Sam and
Oh,
Joey are at
okay.
4.
I always love their episodes, by the way. So whenever they make it to the 5th time club, they're welcome.
Maybe we'll add you in and do a round table.
I would love it. I think they're
That'd be
so funny,
so
and I
fun.
do not know them remotely at all.
They are the best. Sam and Joey are the best. But yes, okay. So last time you
Mhm.
came on to talk about going through a drought and
Yes.
ending a situationship.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is like wild. My life has changed drastically since that
So
episode.
much. You had
Yeah.
mentioned that there was some stuff maybe going on with work.
Uh-huh.
What your life has changed a lot. We recorded that you were living in San Diego,
Uh-huh.
working for a morning show.
Yeah, my life has changed in almost every way it could change, and I feel like every time I come on here, there's, like, something else big happening. I now live in Salt Lake City, Utah, of all places. I never expected to live in Utah in my life, and I have my own morning show, a radio morning show, which is cool because 'cause I've always been kinda like a 4th mic producer, that kinda thing, and then this came about and I couldn't say no.
That's incredible. It's a dream come true.
It literally I am living my dream, and turns out I love Utah. Who would have known? Like, they called me and said, "Would you move to Salt Lake City?" And my first answer was no. And then I said, "But tell me more about the job." And as I learned more about it, I just was like, "I can't pass this up." And it's been incredible. It's been crazy. Also my first winter. So,
I am so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. And I also appreciate you for doing this because I feel like in a weird way, you're living out a dream of mine that I never ended up pursuing. So thank
mm,
you because I get to
yeah,
live it through you.
of course, anytime. I live my dreams through you too. So,
I love
it's
it. I love that
perfect.
for us.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with I think the right place is your move.
Yeah.
So when did this move happen? What were you feeling around it? What was going on in your dating life at the time?
I had not so I had ended that situationship in early May of 2023. I first got the call about moving to Salt Lake mid-May, and it really that felt like there's nothing holding me here now to San Diego other than I loved it there. And so I went through the process and finally August 7th was my first day on air here in Salt Lake. They offered me the job and I moved less than 3 weeks later. It was the craziest turnaround of my life. And yeah, I was like not dating at all. I was just kind of trying to get used to it here. Okay, I said I spent like a month not dating. And then I was on the apps and I went on 3 dates in 1 week. I can't remember. I remember I called you and we talked about trying to date here, I think.
Yes, and what I
I was
remember
feeling
you telling me,
down.
you were feeling down about the mountain men.
Yes. I was like, every man only wants to rock climb, and I'm not going to rock climb with them. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I really in that first, I would say 6 weeks, I was feeling like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna fit in here. I'm never gonna find my person here. I'm never, like, gonna have" I didn't even have, like, a solid group of friends just yet then, and I was not feeling good about dating. It was that, like, I just put myself back as much as, like, I was chasing my dream in my career, I felt like I was holding my personal life back still,
Mhm.
Turns out that was not true.
Did you know anyone when you moved there?
The only person I kind of knew was my co-host, and that was we had met one time in person, and otherwise, I was really going in blind here, and just hoping for the best, and it has turned out so great. I have, like, 2 really good girlfriends, which is, I think, a great start. But yeah, it was a lot of nights spent alone in this apartment for sure.
Mhm. When you mentioned, like, feeling like you were holding your personal life back, did you have thoughts of, like, "Okay, well, if I move there, like, I'm not gonna meet anyone there," or, "If I meet somebody from Utah, like, do I have to spend the rest of my life in Utah?" Like, what was going through your mind in terms of, like, your future plans that you want for you with, like, what if you meet somebody in Utah or you move to Utah and you don't meet somebody because of that?
Right. I think that I was more in the mindset of, "I'm gonna move here, I'm not gonna meet someone," and not, like, fully negative, but it was definitely that expectation of, like, I'm not your traditional Salt Lake City girl, I suppose is at the time of what my knowledge of what a Salt Lake City girl was. And so I was like, this is probably going to be several years, maybe around 35, I'll finally get to move somewhere that makes more sense for me. And maybe then I'll meet my person. And I was trying to just see the best in it, which was I'm living my dream. And like, what more could I ask for? And that I think that's also why I felt so down when I had called you and was like, these men, like, there's no way this is gonna happen. Um, and I think that that mindset can actually be good for you to just kind of be like, "What's the bright side here? What's the bright side in this situation?" Because there were days where I was like, "How do I get through this? Like, I'm on a 3-year contract at least. So
Yeah.
how do I survive these next couple years and try to thrive in them?"
Yeah, it's also this idea of, like, letting go of,
Any
there are all
plans?
any plans or there are always
Yeah.
gonna be so many different things we want, and it's okay to just prioritize one thing in the
Right.
moment. We don't have to have it all at once.
Yeah, and I think that I had spent honestly my whole life. I had recently turned 30 when I moved here. So I felt like I've spent the last 30 years working really hard at my career and like this is finally it. This is what I've worked really
You
hard
were working
for.
really hard at your career when you were 3?
Okay, well, maybe not when I was 3, but honestly since 12 I knew what I wanted to do. So
Yeah,
for 18 years? Yeah, we'll go with that.
yeah.
I just was like, I'm just this is what I want. This is what my priority is going to be and I guess I'll just continue doing that. You know, I thought I was going to settle in San Diego and that just wasn't in the cards. So it was yeah, it was like a good thing to see it that way. Like I've worked so hard for this and then also be like, ooh, things might just take a different path than I expected,
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. I think
which
that's
they
a good
did.
mindset to have, and I think part of why it did is because of how you felt.
For sure. Yeah. I was ready to like buckle down and work really, really, really hard and have no life outside of it, which there are certain times in your life for that. And I like support and encourage anyone, but mostly women, to like have that time in their life.
Totally.
It wasn't meant for me, I
So,
guess.
one day, you had a flight somewhere, and
Yep.
everything changed.
Yeah. I will set the scene of this day for you. My co host was out of town and I was doing our show solo. So it was a hectic day for me. That's not normal. And on top of that, I had to catch a flight to get to the iHeartRadio Music Festival because I work for iHeart and I was working that weekend. Um, the odds of me going on work trips are very low. That's like the only one I go on ever. And I'm running late, but I said I have to shower before. So I run home, shower, no makeup on. I was wearing this sweatshirt and leggings and I somehow zip through like airport security and everything and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have time for a beverage. I'm going to get a beer." I sit down. It was a restaurant and I asked the woman, Utah alcohol laws are weird, so I said, if I just want to drink, do I have to order food? And she was like, "Oh, no, go right ahead. Do you want to sit at the bar?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll sit at the bar." So I sit down and I believe I say to a man, "Is anyone sitting here?" And he said, "No, go ahead." Um, Turns out that man is like my soulmate. And they had the QR code things on the bar. They wanted you to order through it. And I was trying to order through it and it wasn't working. And so he turned to me and said, "Oh, I was like waiting for the waitress. Like I was like looking at her and he was like, "They want you to order through the QR code." And I said in my super annoying Erica voice, it's not working. I'm not kidding. I said it like that. And he said like, oh, okay. And like went back to his drink, whatever. And then a couple minutes later, I finally get a drink. And he just says like, I think he said, where are you headed? And we just started
Oh.
talking. Yeah. But
Wow.
again, I had no makeup on, wet hair. Like I did not look put together. I did not
Ooh,
look
you were at the
good.
airport.
I was like grungy airport day for sure. Having a beer, by the way, at like 10:45 a.m. So
What did you think as this man is talking to you? Like, what was going through your head?
I actually only know because I texted a couple friends like right after it happened, and I recently got sent those screenshots. One of them, I texted her and I said, this man is talking to me at the airport. Should I give him my number? And she said, why don't you wait and see if he asks for it? Which is hilarious because my mind was totally going there. And the other one, I texted her right after, was like, I just met a guy. I just met a guy at the airport bar. I don't know what's going on. He like asked for my number and like I was freaking out. And she was like screaming back to me in text. I also want to point out, I had mentioned I went on 3 dates in 1 week when I started dating in Utah. That was 1 week before this.
Before.
And I was actively getting ghosted by the one date that I was like still chatting with at that time. We had talked about seeing each other when he got back from a trip. And I was sitting there and this airport bar guy was talking to me and a text from that guy came through. It was the last text I ever got from him. I know.
Wow.
I know. And then I was so more focused on the fact that airport bar guy asked for my number that I didn't even care about that text because I like kind of realized like this guy sucks. Who cares?
Yeah, like, here's someone who's actively pursuing me, and it feels good.
Mhm. Right.
When
Right.
you were talking to him, were you like, "Oh, this is somebody I'm attracted to, like, this is somebody I wanna get to know more?" Or were you just like, "This is, like, so ridiculous and silly that it's, like, 10:45 and we're at an airport bar chatting and he's asking for my number?"
Yeah, I think I thought like this is insane, but if there's anything everyone knows about me, it's like I love a good meet cute story. I met my last boyfriend at a bachelorette party. Um so I think I was kind of like, "Oh gosh, this will go nowhere, but like let's just try it. Let's just give it a whirl." I thought he was cute, but he's not my typical type. Like he has a big beard, he has a full sleeve of tattoos. At the time, his beard was very big, by the way. And then he's sitting there telling me, this is not me. He's like, yeah, because he asked what I do for work. And he was like, that's so cool. And then he's like, yeah, I guess my dream job would be like owning a fishing boat. And in my head,
Oh
I'm
my
like,
god.
that's like not my guy. But there was just something about our chemistry that I was like, yeah, of course I'll give him my number. And I didn't know anyone in the city, so I was kind
Right.
of just trying to make friends too.
Did you actually think you were gonna hear from him?
He texted me before I had the chance to worry about it. He sent me a text right when he boarded his flight. It was very cute. So the way he asked for my number, he was like, "What time do you board?" And I was like, "Oh, I have another like 20 minutes." And he was like, "Oh, cool." And I was like, "When do you board?" And he's like, "In 3 minutes." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, you have to go. Like go
Like,
have a great trip,
go.
whatever." And
Where was he going?
he was going to a bachelor party. You're going to freak out. He was going to a bachelor party and the bride's name was Erica, of the
Oh my
groom whose
god.
bachelor party it was. Yeah. He didn't tell me
Oh,
that
wow.
until later, but I then found out and was like, "You're kidding me."
I thought you were about to say
So,
he was going to a bachelor party in Denver.
no, no, thank goodness not. Um, I was like, "No, he has a friend who's getting married. We're going to Denver for that wedding." But no, the bride's name is Erica, and so when I told him my name, he said with a C or a K because the bride of this bachelor party,
Mhm,
hers was with a K.
mhm.
So yeah, that's how he got my number, and it seemed like right after he boarded, he texted and said, I'll say his name. We don't say his name on my radio show, but I don't care. He said, "Hey, it's Nate with the beard from the bar. La da 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 da. Like, let's get a drink when you're back in town." And I answered with the help of a friend curating my texts. I answered like, "Oh, you're gonna have to be more specific," because there were a lot of Nates with beards from the bar. So
Love
that was how
that.
it began. Yes.
Love that.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. I will say, and this is like a PSA to all ladies. He went on the bachelor trip. I knew they were going to Monday Night Football, so it was like a whole thing. I knew he wouldn't be back till Tuesday, and I hadn't heard from him Wednesday midday. And I was like, what do I have to lose? I don't know anyone here. I'll never see him again if I don't like lob a text. So he stopped texting because he like started drinking on the bachelor party. I sent a text Wednesday midday and was like, "Hey, hope your bachelor party was great. Let me know if you want to like get that drink or whatever." And he says he was sitting there kicking himself. He was like, "I screwed it up with this girl. I waited too long to text her." But he was like, "I was going to text you that day." And he said, not even an hour after having that thought, he looked down at his phone and I had texted.
Wow.
I know.
And
Crazy.
he probably felt great that you texted him. Like, that probably was awesome for him too.
Yeah, because he had put all his cards out on the table by asking for my number. And
Mhm.
he said he was kind of, when he asked, he was like, "I thought you were gonna say like, oh, I have a boyfriend," or just be like, "No, thanks." And I'm like, first of all, like, do people say no? I don't know. I guess if he was weird, I would have said no. Um, but
You
yeah,
would have tried
so
to be like, "Oh, it's not working."
right, or like, I don't have a phone, like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it did give him like the confidence to make a plan and like also be a solid dude. He literally, after I texted, was like, "How's next Wednesday? This place, this time." Or he said, "Do you like sushi?" And then like planned the date. Like there was no hesitation.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
I know
Okay.
this was early October. So
Early October.
yeah,
And we're still going very strong.
like I can't even explain it. I cried last week because I just realized like how fortunate I am and how like finding each other was. There's no way to explain it other than like meant to be. There's no reason we were both at the airport bar at 10:30 in the morning on the same day. We live like a mile from each other and I don't yeah, he's just the best person I know and I'm so happy and we're going to move in together this summer.
Oh my
I asked him if
god,
there's anything I couldn't say
Erica!
on this and he said no. So just putting it
Okay.
all out there.
Okay. When you guys started to date, we had just talked about how, like, okay, you're moving to this new place. You weren't planning to live in Utah forever.
No.
I don't know if you still are or not. Where is he from?
He's from Michigan.
Okay.
And he moved here during COVID. So he has been here like just over 3.5 years. And he was close to moving away when we met. He said like he started to really think about where his next stop would be, whatever. Funny enough, I think he talked about going to Denver next. I just love a mountain man. But one of we actually like the beginning of dating was really interesting. We had an incredible first date, but he didn't kiss me. So I didn't know if it was a first date. And then we had a couple other dates after that. And I actually had a moment of being like, is this it? Like, is this good? Do I really like him? I was so new here. I didn't want to get ahead of myself and fall for someone just because it felt good. And so I was
Mhm.
like really, really cautious for the first time in my life. And I had like a week where I was like, I think I'm going to end things. Like, or maybe not end things. I didn't feel confident that I was ready to like jump in. And then one day we went on a hike and we went and got cider after at this place near my house. And I don't know what happened. I was sitting there looking at him and we were having like some serious talks. This all comes back to the where we're going to live thing. And I just realized like I'm going to fall in love with this man. Like I just knew in that moment. It was so crazy. One of the things is because I asked him about children and he admitted that previously he didn't know if he really wanted kids, but he kind of alluded to like, but when you meet the right person, you change your mind about that. And I was like, is this man saying I'm the right person? And he was. Um, and we talked about like, I was like, do you plan to move back to Michigan? Like, that's definitely not in the cards for me, as far as I know. And he was like, I really don't. And I also straight up think I was like, radio, you move around a lot. Like, are you
Mhm.
open to that? And he was like, yes. So
Wow.
I just didn't want to get in if it wasn't going to work and if it
No,
wasn't going
and
to be good.
these are the conversations you need to have, and I
Yeah.
imagine that I'm sure, like, your mixed feelings were because of a lot of different things, like, like, "Am I ready? I did just move here, like, do I just wanna feel, like, wanted by somebody and it's comfortable to,
Yeah.
like, be with somebody?" Or, like, is this the right person? Like, am I in the right place for this person?" But also, like, you need to know that you're on the same page about all of these things, and you need to
Yeah.
know that it's somebody who's open to the lifestyle that comes with your job, and so having these conversations is really hard and really scary for anyone, but it's so important too because that unlocked something for you of like, oh, we are on the same page. He is down. And
Right.
that allows me to take that next step with my feelings of
Right.
exploring this further.
Definitely, and I think that having, like, I recommend to everyone get the hard conversations out of the way as soon as possible. Like, we talked politics, kids, family, moving, honestly, like, women's rights. Like, I was so adamant that we were gonna be on the same page, and I wasn't gonna be changing who I was for someone, because I kinda think I used to do that. It's like that really bad thing that we tend to do as women sometimes.
Mhm.
I'm
We
sure
do.
you understand.
Oh, yes. All too well.
Yes, and I think once I realized how compatible we were, it was like you said, like, it gave me the permission to myself to just be like, "Let's dive in and see what happens." I
Yeah.
also didn't tell my family about him right away. My sisters knew, but typically I would have called my mom and told her the whole story, and I waited until after that date where I was like, "I'm in trouble with this guy."
Why this time did you do it differently?
I was tired of being the girl who got her heart broken, you know? I didn't wanna continue to go down that path and have people start to be like, "Okay, Erica, like, the common denominator is you."
Mhm.
And taking it slow mentally for me actually in the end meant like I could accelerate. It was like we took it slow, and then the moment we decided to stop taking it slow, I was like he asked me to be his girlfriend, and then 2 weeks later told me he loved me, and then like a couple weeks later he met my actually a week later he met my family for Thanksgiving. And then after that it was like we're going to move in together this summer, like this is it kind of vibes.
What was it like planning, like, let's meet each other's families when neither of your families are in the place that you live? Because
Mhm.
that's something that's like kind of a bigger deal when you have to travel to meet the families.
Yeah. Honestly, I just got bold, and he was out of town for like a week right after we became official, and something in me was like, invite him to Thanksgiving. But by the way, yes, our first date was early October, and then by early November we were official, and I was like inviting him to Thanksgiving. So I texted him and was like, crazy idea. Do you want to come to Thanksgiving with me? And this was all three of my older siblings, their spouses, my mom, my stepdad, like three babies, five dogs. Like it was wild. And he said that, like, in the back of his mind, he had been hoping I would invite him. And so it was easy. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. Um, Meeting his parents was a bigger deal because they're in Florida. So we just went to Arizona for Thanksgiving, which is easy from here. Going to
Mhm.
Florida was like a little more to work out, but it ended up working out great. And I was there for New Year's and love his parents. Like our families are very different. He has no siblings. He's an only child. And I'm like, what is that like?
Right.
But yeah, it was like two really different, really fun experiences. And I think we both felt nervous at one point, but in the like, I hope you like them way, not the I hope they like you way, kind of.
Yeah.
Like I wanted him to stick around and love my family. And I think he felt vice versa.
Yeah. Oh my god. I
I
like
know.
I my heart is so happy for you. I cannot believe we're having this conversation. I mean, I can because I've like known what's been going on,
Right.
but if anyone like your sister's wedding is coming up in like very
Yes.
soon, right? Like
Yes, yes,
if
yes.
anyone were to tell you like last September that
No.
you were going to have a plus one, like a
Right.
significant other plus one, but like that you're in love with, that you're moving in with months
Yeah.
after this wedding.
No. I have a weird I kind of like manifested having a significant other plus one though, because she told me like, oh, so her wedding's my birthday weekend. So she was like, you get a plus one no matter what. Their welcome dinner's literally on my birthday. But she was like, yeah, you get a plus one no matter what. And I decided not to tell any of my friends, like, hey, do you want to come to this wedding? I like told people, like, yeah, I have a plus one, but like, we're just going to see what happens. We're going to see where I'm at. And I just kind of had a feeling like maybe I'll be able to bring someone. But yeah, it is really special because it's like my nephews love him and he loves them, which is, by the way, ovaries overload. Like, holy moly. He's gonna laugh at that when he hears that. But yeah, it's just like to be bringing someone who feels like part of the family rather than a date is really special.
Yeah. Oh
So
my
I know I
god,
can't believe
that's
we're
so
here either.
exciting.
I can't.
It's so crazy.
It's the craziest thing in the world, and it's like I'm not saying it's all been, like, perfect. We've not fought, so it actually is pretty perfect. Um, but there was a moment, and I actually texted you about this because I wanted to talk about it. There was a moment, like, right around 4.5 months in where, like, we were so stable. We're, like, spending almost every night together. We have just, like, a normal daily routine life, and I don't know if I've ever had that kind of stability with a boyfriend before because I've always been treated kinda garbage, and it gave me anxiety. It made me panic and be like, "Is this normal? Are you supposed to feel this, like, comfy and settled so early?" I'm actually curious, did you feel that with Jake?
I did. I
You
think
did?
yes and no, I did, but I also kept waiting for the other shoe to drop
Mhm.
because I wasn't used to it, because I couldn't imagine, like, how could it just be this simple and, like,
Right.
not terrifying and not, like, me being on edge and anxious all the time, and it's because I, like, had a lot of unhealthy relationship experiences, and I
Yeah.
hadn't been treated this way, and I hadn't met somebody who, I feel like in the past, it was always like, what's gonna happen, or are we gonna get through this milestone, or is
Right.
this thing coming up like going to ruin things, or situationships where it was me like so badly wanting that security but never
Yes.
actually getting it. And to have somebody who's like not leaving, hasn't given me any indication that he would possibly want to leave,
Right.
it's hard to calm your brain and just be like, okay, like, Alana, like, enjoy this, like, this is a good thing.
Yes. That is you just summed that up so perfectly. I couldn't even put to words that, but it was that feeling of like I've never felt stable before, and then feeling stable is really uncomfortable in the sense that you've never felt it before. I was so
Yeah.
used to being obsessed with the idea of getting this person to make it to the next date, to make it to the next
Yep.
month, whatever it was, that I almost was like future tripping with Nate a little bit. Like we would like talk a lot about like engagements and stuff. And I'm like, I mean, while that's going to happen, we don't need to talk about it as much as we were at that time because I needed to be like reassured. Like, you
Right.
want that still, right? Like every day, like relax, it's going to happen. But I only sat in that anxiety for like a week and I talked to him about it, which changed everything. I was afraid to tell him, "Hey, it's scaring me how like solid we are," because I didn't want him to then he's also kind of an anxious person. I didn't want him to then like spiral and be like she doesn't want to be with me or anything like that. And so I brought it up in like a really delicate way where I was like, "I know this is just a moment, but I feel like if I'm not telling you something, I'm lying to you."
Mhm.
And it was just like a really healthy conversation of like, yeah, this is weird. We've both never had this before, but that's a good thing.
Yeah, and it's great that you were both able to communicate it, but also able to, in a way, like, self-soothe and work yourself through it,
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than just, like, asking for reassurance, but then also, like you
Oh,
said, like,
yeah.
triggering his anxiety.
Totally. I don't know if I felt the need, he'll probably correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't know if I felt the need to ask for a ton of reassurance in this relationship, and that's a
'Cause he was
huge
giving it to you.
sign. Oh my god,
Yeah.
he tells me all the time. On Valentine's Day, I almost started crying because I was like, I what did I say? I think I said, "I never thought I'd find someone who wanted to spend their life with me." And he looked at me and was like, "I'm obsessed with you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like
Oh.
and like he means and he doesn't mean it in like a like territorial way or anything. He's just like, "Of course. Like who wouldn't want to spend their life with you?" kind of way. And I just
Yeah.
didn't know what that was like. And it's the best, by the
Mhm.
way.
It is. How do you think this relationship and this stability has impacted Erica as an individual?
Hmm. I'm definitely more confident just being me, but I think that came a little bit before the relationship. I think that in the last like getting the job, making the move, putting myself out there in that way, I found a new confidence in myself and I've been able to kind of just be cool with where I'm at. And like even like body issues, I feel like I've been like more settled in that, though I have my days without a doubt. Um but I also think it's the first time I've ever been able to picture a real future. Like I'm going to buy a home and he's gonna live in it because he already owns property, and that's another story. But by the way, him owning property was like the number one thing that I was like, yeah, I hope this guy asks me out.
Yeah, like, this is a
Because it's
man.
very attractive, yes. But yeah, I'm able to really plan a future. Also, I can't plan anything because you never know when they're gonna ask you to move, but I'm able to see a future and like I know
Them
that
being radio, not Nate.
what's that?
Them being radio, not Nate.
Yeah, oh, yes, yes, sorry, them being radio, not Nate.
Clarifying for everyone listening who
Thank
might
you,
not
thank you.
automatically think that.
Yeah, yeah, it's just the wildest thing, like, I know when we're gonna move in together. I know, like, loosely when we might get engaged. I know we want to have children together. Like, I also know that I won't have to be alone in, like, the future decisions I make and the moves and all of that, and it's just really nice. It sounds so stupid, but it's just really nice.
Doesn't sound stupid at all. It sounds like everything that, like, you wanted for so long and
Yeah.
were working towards. And I think you said something really crucial a few minutes ago that I just wanna call out. Like, you said that you feel more confident being
Mhm.
who you are, but that came right before you met him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so annoying to hear, but it's like, if you don't feel good where you are, and I think I wasn't for a long time, so I attracted people who treated me like I was an option and not a priority, like, it's that saying. Once I started, like, realizing that this is my life and it's going well, so there's no reason to bring someone crappy into it, I just I'm like my whole self with him. I'm like really stupid and silly and like laugh till I cry because of stupid things we say. And he was talking the other day about how we're both kind of weird. Like, I don't know if people like online know my weirdness, but if you hang out with me, you're like, you're kind of strange. And he was saying, like, if the world was like a spectrum of numbers, if it was like 1 to a billion, he's like, you and I are both like 8.65, and like that's what
Yeah.
chemistry is. And like that's what aligns us and why we match together. And we're just like on this, I guess it's like the same wavelength on everything.
Mm.
And if you aren't comfortable being yourself, I think it's hard to find that person who matches your true self.
Totally, totally, and I think it's important, like you said, you realize, like, when you decided, "I'm gonna fall in love with this person," you realized how compatible you were,
Yeah.
and that chemistry was forming at the same time. And,
Yeah.
people ask me a lot, like, "How did I know Jake was the one?" And I'm like, "There was no magic moment, and it's not the most romantic thing in the world, but it was a mix of, this feels good and this makes sense."
Yes. You think it's going to be fireworks, a train hitting you, whatever. And like, yes, I have that moment where I looked at him and I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it was as much like we're compatible. I like him as a person. Like, I want to hang out with him forever. And also,
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm stable. I'm happy. I'm confident. Like, those things are as important as finding a person who like gets you, I think.
exactly.
Yeah,
Couldn't agree more. I also just realized it's so, of course, like, we are living parallel lives at all
of
times, but, like,
course.
I just put the pieces together of, like, I took a huge chance on myself. Like, you moved and took that chance on yourself. Like, I just started seeing other people, like, a month before meeting Jake, and was like, "I'm committing to myself and doing this thing for
Yeah.
me. Even if it fails, like, I'm going for it." And we were both in these scary question mark unknowns where nothing was guaranteed, but we were
No.
both like, "We believe in ourselves, and we're
Yeah.
gonna see this through."
I think for career women especially, and maybe for career men, but I'm not a man, so I don't know. But for career women especially, when you find the confidence to really put yourself out there in whatever way it is, like in your work, I think it translates
Yeah.
to the rest of your life and you have just like less fear. So, I mean, I don't know. I recommend gambling on yourself if you're ready for like your whole life to change in the best way. But it uh, it's crazy to me because I think that I also went through an identity crisis. I'll talk about this because
Oh,
I
let's
was
hear this.
the
Yes.
perpetual single girl. I was always single. I was the single friend. I was the down for anything friend. I said yes to every trip, every whatever. And then I was like, well, I don't want to always be gone. I don't want to always be away from him. And like, I don't want to do those things. And I had to kind of like figure out who I still was as me without being the friend that like picks up the phone every single time you call. And this isn't a bad thing, but I think it's like good to sometimes be like, I can't just be 100 for my friends now. I have to be like 100 for them while being 100 for another person and 100 for myself. And so sometimes that means my phone's not near me. I can't say yes to the trip. Whatever it is. And it took me a little minute to find my grounding in that and be like, I felt really guilty for a while, feeling like I don't see my friends enough or I'm not there for them enough. Did you ever feel like that?
So for the first time in my life, I think I tried really hard to, like, not I was always the girl who when I would get into a relationship with somebody, I would completely ditch my friends,
Got
and I'd
it.
I'd obsess over the guy, and all I would wanna do is spend time with the guy, and so I was actually the opposite where this relationship with Jake was the first time where I was like, my personal life kind of stayed my personal life, and I still,
Okay.
maintained the same frequency of seeing friends and stuff, but also Jake worked nights and weekends, so it was
Yeah.
easy to do that.
Yeah.
So I was in a little bit of a different boat, but that's so interesting. Did you ever have any conversations with your friends about this, or did you guys like acknowledge that, this was the situation, or did you feel like in a way you maybe understood some of your friends more because you had always been the single one?
I think a lot of different things happened. There was no like conversation with any friend being like, "Hey, I can't just like fly out there this weekend because I kind of like have something serious going on here." I will say I think my family noticed it a lot cuz I would drop everything and just I would be one weekend at one sister's, the next weekend at another's. And I think they're so happy for me. They don't even ask as often as they used to, which is good. Like I think we all needed that, to be like, okay, Erica's like an adult.
Mhm.
I'm the baby of the family. So, um with my friends, I think I did understand some of them more. But I also think I always understood those who like got married and spent every night with their husband, whatever.
Right.
But there was the guilt of like that's who I am though. Like I'm the girl who always shows up and it was hard to be like I need to be selfish in this time and just make sure that like I'm doing stuff for me because I'm like everyone else at 30 pretty much gets to spend all their time with their husbands, right? Like most of my
Mhm.
friends are married. So I'm like I shouldn't feel guilty for this. Like I should feel great about it because I love this guy and I don't luckily most of my friends are long distance, so I still talk to them a lot.
Right.
It's different. It's not like, "Oh, I can't hang out. I'm with Nate."
You're also still
Um,
settling into a new place. Like, you're still new to this new state and city and
so new.
job.
Yeah. So that I think also helps with them being like, "Oh, she can't travel as much." I'm also trying to buy a house, so I can't spend as much money right now and all of those things, but I think it was more of a discomfort in myself
Mhm.
than my close friends realizing it. Other than I'm also just on my phone less, and I think that has to do a lot with the job as well as,
Yeah.
like, in the evenings, I'm not just sitting alone on my couch anymore, I'm
Right.
usually with someone else, so, um, yeah, that's been a little hard on long distance friendships, but we make it work, and I think everyone can, like, respect that this is a huge change in my life, I've never had this, so I'm still adapting as well.
Absolutely. What would you say to
Oh gosh.
single Erica? What would you say to Erica after
The bad
Denver
breakup,
guy? What
yeah.
would you say to Erica going through RSB? What would you say to Erica in her drought? What would you say to Erica considering going on this reality dating show?
There were several reality dating shows that it's wild. Um, to Erica and her RSB, hell yeah. Keep at it, girl, because we all should go through RSB, which is recently single behavior, by the way. Just maybe don't cut bangs, which I didn't. Um, thinking about that breakup and when I texted you, the Denver guy breakup, and when I texted you and said, like, I need your best episodes on breakups because it was so gut wrenching.
I remember where
I
I was. I was, like, walking to sushi with my friends, and I stopped, and I was like, "I need to figure this out right now."
You sent them so fast. I was like, "Whoa."
I sent you some, and I texted Cami, my editor, and I was like, "Cami, like, Erica needs us.
Yes,
Help."
yes. Um, I to her, I would say, like, "You're so much closer than you think." And I don't want this to sound like, "Oh, I really like my boyfriend now because he's similar to Denver guy." It's not that at all. He's actually very different from him, but there are qualities in each of them that was alike that I think was not alike other people I had dated. And
That makes
so
sense.
that was like the start of me really seeking healthy relationships and really like understanding what I deserve. And I deserved better
Mhm.
than Denver guy could give me. And I was so close. I was a year away from meeting Nate. And a year is so short in like the span of life. And to Erica at other times in my life, and like to literally anyone single listening, it happens overnight. You never know when it's going to happen. It just one day you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is the real thing." And all those years of being single were actually fun, and I enjoyed my time as, like, crazy single Erica, and it was great as much as it was hard, but I wouldn't change it. Like, I'm glad that I met him at 30 because I'm ready for it now, and I think at, like, 26, 27, I wanted it, but I was still so focused on work, there was no way I could have been actually ready for it.
I have
Also
goosebumps.
Oh, also, when
Mm.
you're older, well, how old were you when you met Jake? Like 26?
Yeah,
Yeah. So there's and then you dated for how long before you got engaged?
2 years.
Okay, so you guys it was pretty quick, but I will say there's something about being and I say this to my co-host all the time. He's married, he's 28, but he like finds it so annoying. But I'm like, something changes when you turn 30. I swear something shifts and in relationships as well. Like if you start dating 30, 31, whatever, 32 later in life, you just know sooner. Like there is just
Mhm.
something so peaceful very quickly and you either get rid of them really quickly or
Right.
like you know that they're going to stick around and I think we told each other like this is it 3 months in less and like I was kind of freaked out by that and then the more I think about it I'm like but we were right.
Yeah. And it
So,
makes sense. It's because you know who you are. You know what you want. You know what's important to you. You know what you're not going to put up with. So, of course,
yeah.
it makes sense. I think for me, being 26, it's funny because, like, I think of myself like, "Oh, yeah, like, me and Jake didn't meet till, like, where I was at least, like, 28." Like, now I'm
Right.
29, so that can't be true. The math is
Yeah.
not mathing there, but I think I had gone through so much of my, like, relationship shit
Yep.
and my lowest lows and my growth from, like, 23 to 26, so that once I went like, I completely was a different person at that point, and I was way more ready
Yeah.
than exactly when I was 22, 23, 24 and wanted it so badly. I those times I was not at all ready.
Isn't it crazy to look back and you're like, who did you think you were thinking like maybe this man will marry me? Like the last time I thought a man was going to
Absolutely
marry me,
not.
he cheated on me. So like, okay.
Literally.
But
Literally. Yeah.
yeah, it's so nice when you know yourself. And I do think it also has to do with how much you've dated. Like I didn't date much. I had a boyfriend in high school. I did not date any of college. And so I almost had to catch up with that time and that's fine. But at the
Yeah.
time it felt like but friends of mine are marrying their high school sweethearts and whatever and it's like everyone's path is just different. I personally think that getting to date a lot of people and learn a lot about yourself and finding someone a little bit later, which like 30 is not late, but it felt like it
Not
at the
late.
time. I think I think you're set up for massive success if you meet, when you really understand yourself. Let's hope.
Do you feel like you could have said this 6 months ago?
6 months ago? Maybe. Well, wait, I was single 6 months ago?
No, yes, that's what I'm saying. It's like because I can picture people sitting here being like, "Well, it's easy for you to say now that, like, you did meet somebody."
Oh.
But, like, there were times where
Hmm.
you were like, "What if I don't?" Like, I
Right.
might not.
I think I've seen so my sister's about to get married. She met her fiance husband like right around 31 and I think I saw a lot of this feeling in her where like it was so easy. It was so quick. She knew herself so well. She had been divorced. Like that's a different story, but she knew so much what she wanted and I think I saw a lot of that in her, but I didn't think it was going to happen for myself because I just thought no one's ever going to love me. But the reality is, like, someone out there is probably going to love you, and it just might take a little longer to find them. Like, for me, I think I really had to, and I hated it at the time, but I think I really had to find the place in my career where I could let go a little bit in order to be brought to the place where I was supposed to meet him. And so
Mhm.
there just may be like some other unexplainable timing in your life, and then it's going to happen, and you're going to look back and be like, ugh, they were right. And it's so
Yeah.
annoying. It's so annoying.
And, like, I feel like so many of us have that feeling of, like, thank God it happened when it did, and it makes
Oh my
sense why it didn't
gosh.
happen a minute before.
Yeah. Nate and I say that a lot. He went through like a more rebellious phase, I guess. And I used to be so insecure in relationships and didn't trust and had a hard time believing anyone would ever like come back. Like we were talking about, like, I hope I just make it to the next date. Like, oh.
Right.
And I think we both kind of started to go down the path we're on now before we met each other. And we just are like, we're so happy we didn't meet 5 years ago. We wouldn't have worked out. We wouldn't have made sense.
Exactly. Jake and I say
So,
that about meeting, like, 5 months before we met. We
right?
weren't
It's
like, there was
crazy.
other things going on that it just wouldn't have worked.
Right. I mean, I literally met him 6 weeks to the day, I believe, of arriving in Utah. So it's like, had he met someone else or like, there's so many ways that it could have not worked out, and luckily it just did. It just
Yeah.
was easy, and it's supposed to be easy. So, like, if you're sitting here fighting for your life with someone, I'm so sorry, but you should really end it and prioritize yourself first.
I don't even have to
Sorry.
ask you for best relationship or dating advice, like,
I
that's
think
it right
that's
there.
it.
That's
Yeah.
it. Boom,
Yeah.
mic drop.
We've all been there or watched, sadly, I like watched
Yeah.
friends go through it, and it's like you wanna shake someone and be like, "Do you not see why this is not good?" But until it's you, it's really hard. So just try to, if you're out there, like, literally, "Will this boy that I've been sleeping with for 4 months text me today?" Like, if he doesn't, be done.
Mhm.
Or maybe,
Yeah.
like, if you have that fear at all, like, you come first.
Yeah, you do.
Haha. I didn't mean that, like, sexually, but
Ba-doom,
also.
tsh. No, it's so funny. We actually, like, had a conversation about this in our last episode about, like, how many days and nights and trips we ruined for ourselves because we were just waiting for someone to text us.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
It's
Oh,
not worth it. That's not how it should be.
I started to fall in love with Nate that moment that I realized, like, at sitting at that cider place, but he went away for an entire month around the holidays, and I realized, like, this is it because he was FaceTiming me every single day. I asked one time, "Can you make it a priority to FaceTime?" And he did not miss a day. And he went on a
Wow.
cruise in part of that time, and we maybe missed one day, but, like, because of me. He did not miss a day because of himself, even on a cruise in the middle of the ocean. So,
There you
you
go.
know, they'll prioritize you if they
If
really
they
wanna
yeah,
pursue it. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm
And
glad you asked for it too.
yeah, I was like, honestly, the only thing that matters, well, a lot mattered, like, the communication mattered in that time apart, but I was like, it is super important to me that we are, like, face to face for 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
it was always more than 5 minutes. So,
Oh,
I
wow.
know. I
I'm so
know.
happy for
I'm so
you.
happy for me too, to
Me
be
too.
honest.
As
Eh,
you should be.
I
As
know.
you should be. Erica,
I
thank you
am,
so much for catching us up.
oh my gosh, of course. I was also gonna say I'm so happy for you because, like, your wedding's coming up.
It
Are you
is.
excited? Are you nervous? Are you stressed?
I'm excited and stressed. I'm definitely not nervous.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Then you're then
it's
you're normal.
yeah, I'm normal.
Good.
Exactly. I think I'm normal, excited and stressed about it.
Yes. Well, next time I come on for number 6, maybe we'll have big news, maybe we'll wait a couple months, and then more than a couple months, by the way, but maybe we'll have some exciting news. Who knows?
I think we will have to arrange that.
Yeah, I
I
think
love it.
so.
Erica, where can everybody find you?
And you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Erica Shea with 3 A's. And also, if you want to listen to me on the iHeartRadio app, it's E White and Erica in the morning. It's our podcast of our show every day.
Amazing.